those that put themselves out there, like in today's world with technology, with social media, with Instagram, like all the ways, if there's somebody that you respect or you see doing something pretty strong in your field or just in general, reach out to them. There's no harm in doing that. And I think I mentioned like when I was looking at visioning, I reached out to an owner of a business 45 minutes. I didn't have to do it, but it changed their trajectory, right?
Almost 14 years, in this presidency role, how have you focused and evolved the hiring process? What are some of those key innovations and changes that you've helped push forward?
Welcome to the podcast, where we introduce you to incredible humans who share their journeys with the mission to inspire you to harness your own inner tenacity to drive your life and career forward. And now, your host, Adam Posner.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. We're bringing the best and the brightest from the business, marketing, and personal growth to help you harness your inner tenacity and drive your career forward. Folks, my guest today on the podcast is Randy Shaka. He's a true embodiment of growing through the ranks. From humble beginnings as a marketing intern while studying engineering in Michigan State, Randy has built a remarkable 2-decade career with 2 men and a truck, and he's held nearly every position with the organization from mover to manager to executive. And in 2012, he made history as the first non-family member to lead the company as president. Awesome. Under his leadership, the brand expanded its footprint and embraced innovation, launching its sister brand, 2 Men and a Junk Truck, and successfully navigated its acquisition by Service Master Brands. As president, Randy brings a unique blend of hands-on operational insight, franchise empathy, and forward-thinking mindset. He's known for driving continuous improvement, championing new tech, and building a people-first culture that fuels growth from the inside out. So let's get to it. Lots to unpack. Randy, welcome to the podcast, man.
Appreciate it. Good to see you, Ed.
Yeah, this is a good one. I'm excited for that. We were just talking baseball. His kid's 14, mine's 7, and I got a journey to go, but that's a whole different podcast. That's a whole different story here. So, Randy, I love your story. We were talking before. There's something I just love about that grassroots, starting from the bottom and working your way up, right? There's amazing stories. People hear about it all the time. But before we get to that, I love to level set. I love to hear about where like this entrepreneurial side comes from. Was that from your parents? Was that built in? So we always talk about like, if you don't mind me asking, what did your parents do for a living?
Yeah, it definitely. I don't think came from them, and they'll blatantly admit it. My dad was in commercial lending, right, for 35 years. So seen a lot of companies come in and succeed, but seen a lot of them fail too, right? And so, from a conservative standpoint, pretty high in that. My mom worked in administration her whole life. Worked on an Air Force base up in northern Michigan for a few years, and then for a law firm for 42 years. And so grassroots from the beginning of learning how to work hard and if you're going to work hard and play hard at the same time, making sure your values are aligned with those. And so I think it came just through sheer exposure, candidly, of walking in the door here at 2 Men in a Truck. And franchising, I don't think many people grow up with a path to go into it, right? And it's one where I needed a job and I walked in the door here in a summer internship and fell in love with just growth, right? Of building a brand, of working with people to figure out issues, right? And so I think I was just exposure therapy, candidly, where I came from.
But you did mention one thing about your parents was values. And you look back now, and that certainly transcends everything you do. What were a couple of those key values that you look back now, like, my parents hammered those into me. That's something I believe in leadership, something I believe in family, something I won't compromise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and my dad was in the Air Force too. And so part of what I learned very quickly growing up was you have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. So if you're going to speak, you better have something important to gain or add. And secondly, more importantly with that is, seek to understand, like listening is so critical,
right,
in how you understand people. So that was pretty ingrained early on was the value of respect and character. Right. And so secondly, I think just, working hard, right? Like nothing's going to be given to you. I didn't come from a wealthy family. It's hard work, put your head down. You can do a lot of things through that where you don't have to be exposed to degrees and some of those other areas, which helps you along the way. But, calluses on your fingers and sweat can get you pretty far in life. And I think that was ingrained from my dad. My mom was just, anyone that knows her, she's 83 now, most caring individual you will ever meet. And so I think that value of care, right? Compassion for people. And so you mix all that together, I think I've got some pretty strong values from my parents from early on in my life.
Isn't it amazing when you just kind of like look back at it and be like, you know what, I'm making them proud. I'm doing it the right way. And thank God I got brought up that way.
Yeah.
It keeps you straight, right? It keeps you that North Star, right? It keeps you like, all right, in focus. Like, this is who I am. not going to compromise it. And that adds to leadership, right? Like you
Yeah.
think about how you are as a leader and doing things the right way. But let's hit this rewind button there. Internship. And I preach everyone who listens to the show. If it wasn't for my internships, I mean, I've had so many of them. I mean, they shaped who I am. They gave me that first taste, that first exposure. And I always say you also learn not just what you like early on, but you learn what you don't like. You learn what you don't like to do. So let's tell this story. How old were you looking for an internship? Where did it all start?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. That latter point you just mentioned was so critical to my journey of figuring out what I didn't want to do. And this was early 2000s. I was a junior at Michigan State in engineering, right? I was that left brain analytical kid growing up and was pursuing mechanical, then switched to civil. And I had just done an internship with the state of Michigan, and it's no knock on that opportunity. It wasn't for me. It was testing asphalt and testing rocks to see what would go well with future roads in Michigan. Yeah. This is what I'm going to do.
What's going to be the less pot? What type of asphalt mix is going to lead to less potholes?
Right. And if you're ever driving Michigan, you know, it's a horrible system. So it's like, I just want to be attributed to that. So I candidly, was looking for a summer job and found out through this opportunity. I had no background on franchising, no background on 2 men in a truck, but they were looking for a marketing intern. And I had no business, Adam, applying for a market. Like I'm an engineer, right? Who applies for a marketing internship?
True. But
I walked in the door, interviewed, and I did an internship at Disney World. They have that, college program. And, you get the Disney values instilled in you of like, hey, we have one job, it's make people happy. And I just love that feeling, but I never thought I'd find it till I walked in the door here, when you can just feel the energy walking into an organization. And this was 27 people deep at the time, right? This corporate company. And so applied for a marketing internship, got it that spring. And my office was in the basement of our rented space, about 3 miles from our now corporate office. So it's where we stored all our holiday decorations, everything was down there. And I had a folding table and a computer and a project to work on the first grassroots marketing manual for 2 men in a truck. So I just went to work, man.
They just threw it at you, like, go for it.
Yeah, threw it at you. Hey, like, it's important. We know relationships, whether it's with realtors, storage, apartments, you name it. But we got to put more of a formality to it of like the how-to, right? And so I just went to work figuring it all out. Like it wasn't a lot of information as accessible as it is today back in 2001, but I had a project and a goal to help the brand, right? And the funny part was like about 3/4 of the way through that summer internship, I had a friend who was working for 2 men in a truck as a business consultant, like really helping franchisees, with their business. He came down to my office in the basement and said, hey, like my wife, Angie, and I are thinking of opening a 2 men in a truck, in Florida. And we're excited. I'm like, oh, that's awesome, man. They're going to move, relocate from Michigan. There was no brand presence down in the state.
Seemed right.
And I was just so excited. He turned and walked and he stopped and turned around. He's like, hey, do you want to come with? And I'm like, what? Do you want to come, like, do what? Come with? And I'm like, hey, man, I got 2 classes this summer. I'm going to graduate with an engineering degree from Michigan State. And I just went home that night and I thought more. I didn't sleep. I'm like, I want to go back to Florida. I want to go with them. And the trouble was, and like, how do I ask my dad, right? Like, how do I go to have that conversation with him to say,
yeah, 2 classes left.
Yeah, 2 classes. And it was crazy. Thermodynamics and a physics class, like to finish my degree that summer, right? And he needed me because it's, spring startup, right? Everything needs to get rolling right out of the gate. And I was just distraught, like, do I want to like let my parents down? Like, how do I do this, right? And my dad, again, right, commercial lending, he didn't know anything about 2 men in a truck and anything like that. But I sweated it out and I had that face-to-face with my dad and like just said, hey, I have this opportunity. I know it's not my degree. I know it's not pursuing engineering, but it's pursuing this opportunity with Brad and Angie. I'm going to sleep on their couch, no rent, whatever it needs to get done, get done. And he just said, just promise me you'll get your degree. I'm like, all right, I got this figured out, Dad. I applied to UCF, Central Florida University. I'm going to go down there. I'm going to work and take my classes, while I'm working.
Right.
And
problem solving.
He said, perfect. He moved me down. About 4 weeks later, I got a letter after I moved down working with Brad and Angie from UCF saying, thank you, but we denied your admission to the UCF.
You guys just throwing a wrench in my works here.
Yeah, right. Like, wait a minute. So, and I didn't tell my dad that, but that was kind of my start. I got to like start up. You think like the sweat equity going into building, whether it's franchise, anything off the ground in a market that no one knows your name.
You got to make a presence. Build a presence.
Absolutely right. So it was putting on whatever hat needed that day. I was either on the trucks driving, I was out doing the grassroots marketing, handling, any internal administrative stuff in the office. It was helping with hiring, recruit, like whatever we needed to do to take our 2-truck little operation with 2 men on a truck and expand it and grow from there. And so that really was, to your earlier point, like the entrepreneurship, like that was that exposure, like that
was it.
that pure, right? Yeah, that adrenaline of like building something that you're proud of. More importantly, like you're getting kicked in the teeth every day, right? Of trying to compete with other brands and going through in the moving industry, which isn't an easy industry to operate in. But I did that for 2 years, man, and loved it. And we grew it to 6 or 7 trucks and got homesick for Michigan. And at the time decided to move back. And they were just creating a brand new position here in Michigan at a corporate office for startup specialists. It was like, this role is going to go help every new startup that opens within 2 months, wherever it's
almost
at.
Like an in-house consultant, right?
Yeah. And I was like, that's what I just did. So I applied for it. Yeah, got it. And was on the road that next week, helping a franchise open in Cincinnati. And fast forward, it's been 24 years. I've probably had 17 titles, which aren't important to me, but took over as brand president in 2012.
That is incredible. So let me ask you this. I mean, back then when you made the move down to Florida, was there ever a thought like this is going to be forever? Like I remember looking back on my roles, I'm like, there's no chance I'm doing this one. I mean, I only had one job where I thought I'd be there a long time. That's a whole other story. But did you think this is forever?
No. It was like that excitement to go do something new, right? Because I did the internships. Like that path was kind of clearly laid out, right? I graduated, I probably get a pretty exciting job at that.
Back at engineering.
Yeah, excitement of like building something, right? Of like, we don't have a roadmap for this fully, and we need your help, and that just drove me, man. And so, yeah, I didn't have it all figured out, but once I got there, I fell in love.
Was there ever a thought of leaving, like as you started to work your way through? Was there ever, I'm sure you had recruiters reaching out to you, opportunities, you're starting to build a family, different things, different objectives. Like, were you ever close to leaving?
There's moments that I think any leader goes through, whether you're, I've been with 2 men for 24 years, right? So I don't know, people always say that's kind of uncommon in today's world, but the thing that's always kept me here was the opportunity to build something, right? And like have your fingerprints on something that's either going to impact that next person walking them through the door, or the customer, or a franchisee that's joining us. We have those moments, man. We went through, the pandemic, and you just you get hammered with things that are
recession,
kind of out of your control, and you have to respond with what's in your control. And that's not always a good feeling, right? And I think, there's something in management too called Cantor's Law. It's like Kanters, right? It's like when you're going through change, you got start, middle, end. The middle part is usually a feeling of failure, right? Because it's like there's so much things hitting you. The start's the excitement. The ending is going to be something that's going to bring you fulfillment. But that middle part, and I apply it to leadership too, it's like you get in this rut, or you get in this feeling of, is this what I want to do? Or do I have the energy to go back? And it kind of goes back to your why, right? And that purpose. And if you lose sight of that, it's so easy to get burned out. But yeah, I think like a lot of people, you have opportunities to leave and go do some things, but kind of go back into your checklist of the pros and cons. And at the same time, like, I love this brand. Like, I love 2 Men in a Truck. I don't know.
Why do you love this brand?
The people.
What is it?
No,
it's people say that all the time, Randy.
I know, but
that's so clear. Like let's get into what actually is it about the people.
Here we go. So I don't think if you're growing up, did you ever raise your hand and say, hey, like, what do you want to do when you grow up? Like, it was like either an athlete. I was like shooting fadeaways in the corner for basketball. Like, I wanted to be that all-star. Then I want to be a veteran. No one ever raises their hand to be a professional mover, right?
Or recruiter.
Or recruiter.
No one's be a recruiter. When I grow up, I want to be just like you. I want to be a recruiter struggling for fees every day. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, right? Like, there's no, like, I don't know. There's no spotlight on that, right? But
no.
But it's more than that, right? It's people. And like, when you find people that share values, that share a common purpose, like, I know it's cliche, but like, part of that was ingrained from Mary Ellen, our founder. Like, that's how she started this gig. She was a single mom, didn't have anything, and started this 2 Men in a Truck gig with her 2 sons and her daughter, Melanie. It wasn't about a profit. Like, it was to provide opportunities for people. And she says that she was just here last week visiting us. Like, she still talks about that to this day. Like, I never had a vision. I didn't have a plan or P&L, a budget. I just had the vision to say, I want to help people get jobs around Lansing, Michigan. And her first year in operation, well, actually, first couple of years, she made no money, but the first year she made $1,000 profit. She wrote 10 checks of $100 to local community organizations here. Right. And so, like, that's not
Says
cliche. That's just like, that's part of your DNA. And then when you build that culture, and like I told you, that feeling walking in the door interviewing for an internship, like you can tell pretty quickly a brand, are they growing or dying by walking in and see, what is it?
You can feel
What's it feel like, right? And so that's what keeps me here is the people that have the values, that want to give back and move people forward, that give back to the community, but more importantly, are building something, right? This company looks nothing like it did when I took over in 2012, and looked like I did when I first started here, from the people working on it every day, either on a process, on our brand, on some technology, whatever it is, to get better. And that hasn't changed in my 24 years, in which that fire is still there because we're still building.
I love that. It's so rare these days with all the crap you hear about big companies, and they say, like, a lot of companies say, "Hey, we're family." They're not. Your family won't fire you. Can't fire you.
Yeah.
Right? And when people make that analogy, like, no, that's not true. But I want to walk it back to 2012 when you took over. I mean, as the first non-family president, that had to be a culture shift. How did you earn the trust of the team and the family to ensure that the legacy would continue and stay in touch? Talk to us a little bit about that. Let's unpack that.
I was 34 years old, right? Looking back, I'm like, man, am I ready for this? Right. And, like I said, I came as an intern. I didn't have the degree, the experience, the internships in New York or any of those cool cities like that. Right. I came from small town Michigan here. Right. So, it was a big undertaking from the franchisees as well. But I think part of what helped was the credibility, right? Like I've been on the trucks, I've been working in the operations.
Every job you've had, every job.
I know what it's like to hire. I know what it's like to have somebody not show up that you need that morning, right? When you're working on to go serve customers. So I think the credibility was there at the beginning. Secondly, to your earlier point about values of what's ingrained in you, like I approached it very well with that mentality of like, I just want to seek to understand before I'm understood. And really visiting franchisees, hearing what's on their mind, like where are we good, where are we not good, what can we do differently? Like that approach over those first 100 days, whatever it was important. Walking around here is getting to understand like the rest of the team, where do they want to be? And so the biggest thing I think that helped was we were so good about serving customers, but we were growing so fast that we didn't really have, to your earlier point, that clear North Star. Like, what is this vision for Two Men in a Truck, right? And so that was one of my first major views. Like philosophically, we need to define where the heck we want to take this brand.
Yeah, let's talk about that process for a bit.
Yeah.
How did you break that down?
There's a great brand here in Ann Arbor, Michigan called Zingerman's, and it's a deli, and it's started by two dishwashers back in the early. It's a very similar story to us, but now they have consulting. They've got this huge online orders, but they are extremely visionary. And so when I took over back in 2012, like I just shared, one of the things, building a vision, like how the heck do you do that? Right? You can go read a book or you Google it, right? And it sounds simple and contrite, but like building a company vision, what first came up was an Inc. magazine article by Zingerman's, one of their co-founders, Ari. He talks about the recipe for writing a vision. So I basically that night emailed him and said, hey, I don't know you. I'm only an hour from you. I know you're not really keen on franchising because you all did your own thing, but I want to go after visioning and writing it. Are you open to meeting? He responded that next morning and said, meet me at the deli Saturday morning. We'll have coffee. I'll just lay it out.
Oh,
so he laid it out.
Generosity.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. And so we took that recipe and built it into our process here to say, hey, like, let's get our stakeholders together. Let's get the core franchise influencers together. Let's talk through, hey, where do they want to be? What should the customers be saying about our service? Let's interview some past customers. Let's interview some just general people in the public and just get a sense of what they think our brand should just look like, should act like, and honestly, behave as we move forward. And so we took that, built that first vision, and we've probably had 5 or 6 iterations of that ever since. But it's really like, hey, put your problems aside because everyone's got them.
Right.
Where the heck do you want to be? And whether it's 3 years, 2 years, 1 year, write it down and then work backwards to build your strategy around it. Right. And that's kind of what we've done here.
I love it. All right, Randy, 2012, you're the new president here. You're probably a bit overwhelmed at the time and you're like, I need to make an impact here. What was that first maybe new initiative, project or something you thought was going to be awesome, and then you just got punched right in the face.
Yeah, there was kind of over the transitionary period of leadership, right? And it was um, coming out of 08, 09, recession, all that fun stuff too, is looking from an automated communications, right? This voice over IP telephony, right? And so going from the standard POTS lines to this whole new world of new communications. And so, hey, everyone, let's go with this new platform. It's 25,000. We'll do it, and it was an epic failure. Like just kind of like I'm dealing with some, even still today, some camera issues, but quality issues on the audio. Customers were freezing on they couldn't even speak with them when they would answer. Our calls were being dropped. We quickly learned that it wasn't even tied to one of those lessons learned, a greater overall communication strategy, right?
Yeah,
And,
nothing tied
so
to it.
that's one, like, wait, you're asking us to spend all this money when everything was working fine before, and now we're invested and the customer experience is worse. Thank you. It's like, what? Uh, so I learned really quick that was kind of a reinforcement of like, hey man, if we're going to spend $1, it better be tied to something that's either going to have a defined return or lead to our overall strategy, right? Of where it should be moving forward versus it'd be great to have kind of thing, right? And so we learned quickly about that one as a way to never do that again.
So talking about the customer experience, I mean that's what separates good companies or bad companies from great companies. What are a couple of those tenets when it comes down to the fundamentals of ensuring a great customer experience?
Yeah, I think you got to listen to your customers first and foremost, especially your previous customers. And we do that every few years of do just simple reach out, pulse surveys, see how we're doing, what we could do differently. Secondly, you have to be agile in today's world, right? Everyone wants to be met where they want to be met, and it's probably in a different place as a consumer, right? You got some of the older school folks that still want to pick up the phone and call you. You got people that feel, like, hey, I want to book a move right from my iPhone today, right? And you have to be agile enough to meet customers where they want to be met. And third, you got to constantly be improving your processes, right? Like for us, from moving perspective, we're expected to show up in uniform with clean equipment on time and under estimate, right? And so whatever we can work on each and every day to get those areas fine tuned, especially heading into our summer season here, you got to be dialed in. So it's listening, you got to be agile. And I think you got to be working on those operational processes consistently of trying to figure out which ways we can grow and get better at.
Hey everybody, Adam here from the Podcast. Today's podcast is brought to you by the team at Fountain. Fountain is your full-service frontline workforce management platform. I have to tell you, Fountain's offerings are some of the most robust I've seen for any product in the space. They offer full solutions for hiring, managing, and retention. They are truly a one-stop shop focused on the frontline workforce. They also create informative content using their data. For example, they analyze a bunch of data from their fast food chains and created a trend report you could download now on their website. They also have a new ebook out called Frontline Voices. There's a lot to dive into. Certainly check it out. And you can learn more at fountain.com, linked in the show notes. Thank you. So it's interesting to talk about operation. When we talk about operation, I think hiring falls into that too. And you have such a range of folks that work within your organization, right? You have
Yep.
the folks on the ground every day, the movers, and then you have executives, you have everything in between. So different skill sets, different backgrounds. What's the general overall philosophy to hiring within your company?
Yeah, I think, for us, we're blessed. Like you'll see some of the stats, on the operations side or the franchise side, almost 75% of our managers came from, like I did, working on the trucks or on the phones, right? And so we've really worked to develop those internal career development programs, whether that's, hey, it's my first job, I'm on the trucks, and like I was, of ways to grow my career, of what prepare myself for what might be next, to scholarship programs, to manager development programs, which ranges all aspects of the business, right? Finance, operations, HR, marketing, sales. So first, it's like having the resources there for our team members to take advantage so they can grow internally. Secondly, it's being very, very, I don't know if strict is the word, but it's very consistent with our process of bringing on people. So, you might be speaking with 5 or 6 different individuals before you get to a final interview, right? And the whole point of that is, do they match our values? Do they live, that core purpose of moving people forward? That's a core common interview question of what does that mean to you, right? And so it's a balance of obviously skill and acumen, but it's also more importantly, is it going to be a good fit from a chemistry perspective to bring this person in? Because we've had plenty of leaders or plenty of roles that have come in where that was not a good, it was like oil and water from the culture, very talented people, very skilled, but it just didn't mesh well, right? And they weren't here long. And so our culture kind of trumps a lot of that process today, right? Of making sure we're consistent. We take our time and we make sure it's the right experience for the candidate coming in. Like, this is us. Like, this is who we are. Is it what you want to? Because if it's not, like, that's just part ways right now, you know?
Well, there's a couple things to unpack on that one. First and foremost, when we talk about culture, and I spoke about it in nauseam on the show, I hate the word fit, right? It's not about a fit. Right?
Yeah.
And when we talk about culture, what are those questions or those conversations you have to see that they align? Let's call it cultural alignment, right? Because when we talk
Mhm.
about culture, we don't
Mhm.
want everyone to look and sound like us physically on the outside, right? We want diversity and mindset, but we want those core values. How do you get there in an interview? Right? Because I'm
Yeah, I think
assuming, Randy, by the
yeah,
time someone gets to you in the interview process, especially for
yes.
leadership, they've gone through other folks. They have like the hard skills. They have the resume. But how do you ensure that their values are going to be aligned?
Yeah, I think that's partly to your point, like of looking at what's their environment going to look like. So for our perspective here, people are in a team environment consistently. We're either working on projects, we're working on, you know, a new idea, a new concept where you're not a lone ranger, you're part of a team. So I'm
Mm,
really honing in on like, hey, tell me about a time where you're with a team and something failed. Like, how did you overcome it? What did you do to lead the team through it? And just share that experience with me, right? Let's talk about failure, right? Like, we talk, I think success is always that word people use, but like the opposite of success isn't failing. It's like it's mediocrity, right? So tell me at a
love that.
time like
Yep.
where you felt either your brand or whoever you're working with, like there was a mediocre environment or things weren't working out, and what did you do to change it? Or secondly, tell me about a time you failed, right? And like you asked me that earlier question, like that's part of growth, that's part of development, that's part of building here. We're gonna fail, but we ought to fail fast and
Hmm.
get up and dust ourselves off and keep running. But you try and tune those in to see how they respond, right? And if they're bringing some tangible, actual, uh,
Not fluff,
responses
not a
to what
fluff
they did,
answer, not
yeah,
a
yeah,
canned failure.
oh,
I tried too hard. That's how I failed. I don't want to get that shit. Like, come on. No. Give me.
no, yeah,
We all fail. We all make mistakes. What happened? What'd you learn from it? And how'd you grow? What'd you do about it?
yes, absolutely. I don't, yeah, I don't delegate it. Okay, well, let's talk about that a little bit more, right? And so, yeah, it's really trying to, and reflecting on our last 6 months, like where did we not do something well, or where did we may have failed, and trying to pull something from there to say, hey, how would you have handled this situation differently, right? Like, would you approach it like we did, or would you have something different of,
Mm,
of what you would have brought, to this organization when we're going through it? Because it's not that one that is the next one we're working towards, right? That we need that help with.
very true. Yeah,
Yeah.
and then you also mentioned the experience, the actual, and I think that's something that goes underlooked by a lot of organizations. That's a potential new employee's first touch point with a new company.
Hmm.
How well was that process, the communication, the feedback, the scheduling, all those pieces? And I also guide candidates as well too. I say, listen, oh, it's not going fast enough. I go, well, what does fast look like? Do you have enough opportunity as a candidate to do your own due diligence in the process to ask the right questions? Did I meet enough people? Do I understand the role? Am I being thrown into a fire? Or is this company giving me a proper amount of time to onboard and ramp up? Because every role in every company is different. If you're
Right.
backfilling somebody and it's a high, intensity, high volume job, you're probably going to get thrown into the fire where expectations set for you. So I think it works a lot on both ends. So in your, geez, almost 14 years, in this presidency role, how have you focused and evolved the hiring process? What are some of those key innovations and changes that you've helped push forward?
Yeah, to your point, I think be very clear up front about the expectation, the communication, right? Like it's always one that can get lost very quickly. If you are interviewing, you got a lot of folks interviewing for a role, but we have to be as intentional with the employee experience just as we are with the customer experience,
Right.
right? And so to your point, it's seeking their feedback post onboarding to say, hey, did we meet and exceed what you were expecting as part of this process? Obviously, post COVID, virtual is a whole new world now,
Oh
right? And
yeah.
so we're testing. We use Teams, and we're using that as a platform with the individual to see, hey, is this working for you from a way to communicate faster, right, and check in with you. We are checking in throughout the process where, hey, it's Tuesday, and I know we said we weren't going to get back to you till Friday, but we just want to check in and see how your week's going, right? Like
That's the way to do it.
making that experience feel, which is just who we are as a group, but making sure we're intentional with it. Because otherwise, to your point, it gets pushed by the side because you got fatigue because you're interviewing a lot of roles, especially this time of year. At the franchise side, they're interviewing a lot for ramping up for summer season, right? And so you can become very stagnant or just fatigued in that whole process just from a sheer volume. But the moment you start, dropping this process here, dropping there, then that's the new standard, right? And so we can't do that. And for me, if I'm hiring somebody too, it's also like, hey, just have coffee, like face to face. I know that sometimes the old inefficient classic ways are still what works best, right?
It's that time. It's that one-on-one time. It's just having those conversations, especially for a leadership role or some other kind of,
Absolutely.
core management role. You just want to get a vibe because listen, let's be honest about it. Some people are really good interviewers, but when the rubber hits the road, it's not there.
100%. Yeah.
You need-
and you get, like to your point, you get a chance to see, who they are outside of the interview environment, right? A virtual Teams interview is a little different than grabbing coffee and catching up, right? And so, yeah, so we try to employ those. I don't think it's always, but it's always a process that we're trying to listen and learn and get better because it is critical, right? It's no different than the customer journey with us. As the employee journey is frankly probably more important for us.
Yeah, let's shift a little bit. I want to talk about innovation and growth, and you've definitely been at the forefront of that. What was maybe even one of those small things early on that you implemented that you didn't think was going to be a huge impact, but actually turned out to be massive shift?
Yeah, I think for us, we've always been, our founder Mary Ellen was a data. She's a data analyst for the state of Michigan as a single mom, right? So one thing's from a 2-man truck was like, hey, harness data. I think one of the things that we really want to do moving forward, especially when I took over as leader, was, hey, let's take what makes us great, but let's make it better, right? Like, let's get the operational KPIs out to our franchisees faster so they can convert that to useful information to make decisions quicker, right? And so that's a big one for us is transparency. Like we share, the ability to see, those core operational metrics across the network was one that you probably can never move too fast on, but from a business intelligence, that was a game changer for us because we're 400 plus locations deep, right? There's a lot of emotions in running a business. And if somebody's not improving or growing, it's much easier to have a very objective conversation with data and looking at trends and comparisons than, yeah, well, my market's different or this is different. And it's like, okay, let's look at what the data says, right? So that was a big one. I think that continues to provide dividends today that, we feel like we're always working on because we want stuff faster, right? We want more information. We want predictive analytics. We want use of AI, like all that stuff.
That crystal ball of real time, right? They want that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But sorry, continue.
No, I think that was the big one. I think secondly, it was just reestablishing to earlier question or comment about their journey, right? Of providing a one-stop shop for them if they're looking at moving to say, hey, like, here's a checklist on moving, here's your resources, like, here's what you should be thinking. So our whole lead process has resonated towards just providing information to create their journey as stress-free as you can make moving for our customers as they move forward with us in that process.
How does that work with such expansion? How do you show in a franchise model ensuring the brand consistency, quality, and customer service? Because even though it's a franchise and it's owned by somebody else, they represent the overarching logo. How do you ensure that? How do you keep up with all these individual units?
Yeah, that's the data-driven model, right? But it actually starts way back when a franchisee comes to us looking to join us. Through that discovery process is understanding what they're getting into. Into that, just like interviewing an employee, like interviewing a franchisee coming through is just as critical, right? We're saying, hey, we're going to have a call at 2. Does that prospect make it at 2:00? Are they on time? Are they asking questions? Are they engaged? Are they saying the right things during our discovery interview that aligns with our views and our culture and our beliefs? Or are they taking a wholly different approach to say they're going to do things a lot different than the brand than what we would expect? So that's the first part, is making sure we've got the right, and we say no to quite a few folks that want to be part of it. And I don't say that puffing my chest, because
there has to be a rigorous screening process. There has to be criteria.
Yeah, you got it, because there's people in our brand that have been here 30 years, right? That have invested way back when, that have created this brand and this reputation in our communities, which is why we have close to that 97% referral rate in moving, right? Which there's so many variables that can go wrong in a move.
Huge number.
Yeah, right. And so for us, it's the accountability, right? You're coming in, you're joining a brand, like we're only as strong as our weakest operator, right? Too, as well, because if somebody has a bad experience in Orlando, somebody in Vegas is going to hear about it because of social media, whatever it may be, right? So
especially with Yelp and all the other platforms, because they're all clearing houses of negative reviews. It's usually not the positive ones that shine.
Never, right? And so for us, it's that aspect of it. And then it's the training, right? It's making sure the training, the programs, the processes, the playbooks are all in place. It's 40 years running this brand. A piano weighs the same as it did 40 years ago, but it still needs to be moved with care. And there's a
Right.
proper way to do it, right? And so you've got the expectations, the data, the process, and then also the recognition, right? Like we do a great job of recognizing who is the
That's
top
critical.
5-10% in our network from a service standpoint. What are they doing that's driving it? All the way down to the mover driver level at a franchise level of saying, hey, who are our top 100, frontline team members that we're sharing recognition to the franchise for, right? And so the awareness, the awards, the recognition is a big part of that as well. It's huge, right? If we keep that 97% plus our acquisition cost, the marketing cost, like the value of a referral is priceless, right? And
Oh
we
yeah.
take great pride in that.
Wow. We talk about it all the time. The power of a referral, that says so much. I mean, I literally had a podcast guest that was never a customer in my recruiting business refer me for recruiting. And the power of that referral is probably going to lead to business. It's
Right.
incredible. I want to talk for a quick second about innovation and growth again. And when you guys went out and you launched the sister brand Two Men and a junk truck, it could
Right.
have diluted the core.
Yeah.
What was that key decision factor to say, we're in a good place to expand?
Yeah, it's a great question, and one that was on our mind too as we went through it. But that came from a visioning exercise that I mentioned earlier, reaching out to our past customers, saying, "Hey, like, what would you trust two men
Mm,
in a truck for in your community, regardless of moving?" And we listed like 14 different things, from
mm.
yard work to removing unwanted items to hanging TVs, whatever it was. And by far, the number one thing that came back was like junk removal or hauling away items I don't need. And so for us, it was like, wow, okay, that's a big one. And at the same time, franchisees were calling saying, hey, I'm getting calls. I'm kind of getting just for junk removal, not anything
People
to
are
do with
moving.
the relocation, right? Is there any ideas on trucks or equipment? And so those two things like met in the middle and said, let's create this team, let's create this group to say, let's go figure it out, right? And so we've learned a lot about the Two Men in a Junk Truck brand. And part of the reason to create its own entity identity was, if it's going to be successful and strong, it's got to have its own branding, it's got to have its own system, and it's got to have its own resources working on it 100% of the time. It just can't be a byproduct of moving, right? And so that decision was kind of met with data, was met with what the customers were asking for. And at the same time, a franchise agreement is an asset for a potential investor or our existing franchisees to have as well for their portfolio. But we felt it was best for the consumer and the public to have those separated out. And like I said, I was an engineering major. I'm not the most creative guy, but the
Hmm.
Two Men name, and adding, Two Men in a Junk Truck just took, 40 years of brand equity of two men, but just
Pretty
infused with
easy.
junk, right? Yeah, made it easy, right? Um, but to your point, like, yeah, we know what we do well on the moving side. I mean, that's local, long distance, storage, our created service. The junk focus is very different. You still got the bootstrapping, the grassroots, probably a little bit more on the junk removal side. But you're pinpointing different marketing strategies to drive demand, where in moving, you can't really do that. You can't force somebody to move,
Interesting.
right? Yeah.
Right.
But on the junk side, hey, spring promotions, fall cleanups, there's a lot of ways
There's
to
a little bit
incentivize.
more trigger point, a little more
Yeah.
opportunities from a calendar perspective.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Ah,
You got
interesting.
it. Yeah. Yeah. And so those two things, line up really well together. And so we've got, 70 plus markets now operating the junk brand, and we're bringing in, a good mix of existing two men franchisees, but now we've got some external junk removal only, which, you think of the value of marketing synergies in the market, like that's just the investment levels of different, like
Works.
it's going to be a great recipe for the future here.
And it's a completely complementary business. I mean, once you
Yeah.
have somebody moved, right, there might be junk they got to remove from the past owner or tenant, whatever it is. There's a lot of complementary upsell, cross sell with that too, and we could certainly talk about that forever from a marketing perspective.
You got
But
that.
I want to bring it home here, Randy. What is keeping you up at night these days as a leader?
Well, and I preach this to my teams, and I need to take my own medicine, but it's trying to focus on what you can control. But, obviously the housing market's been the way it has been the last couple of years, right? With affordability rates where they're at, a lot of uncertainty from a consumer sentiment. So those things kind of keep me leery and awake. It's secondly is just, are we moving fast enough, on the technology, on some of the AI, and helping consumers get educated and aware of two men on a truck faster, or are we online with what we're thinking, right? Because I don't want to get beat on speed.
Mm-hmm.
You know, for me personally, is this, am I living up to what everyone out in my network is expecting of me too, right? And so those things all kind of muddle in your mind at times, and then, is my 14U baseball team going to win this weekend's tournament or not, right? And as a dad and a
Exactly.
husband and all those things, but yeah, it's navigating the storms, right? Those are the things that are always on your mind of like, are we working fast enough? Are we doing it the right way? We're always going to run into problems, but there's been some macro factors hitting the housing side that, we haven't seen even before 0809. And so we're
A lot going
navigating
on.
through it. Yeah. And I guess as a leader, you see this as an opportunity because every other moving company is in the same boat as we are, or you're going to complain about it. And our choice has been, hey, like invest in our technology. Let's look at the customer journey, like make it more efficient for booking online, and let's come out of this storm stronger, faster, smarter than we did going in. Right. And
That's how
that's
you
the
do it.
mentality we've had,
That is how you do it. Randy, what is that single greatest piece of career advice that you'd love to pay forward?
You nailed it earlier. You used to, like, the value of internships, like those that put themselves out there, like in today's world with technology, with social media, with Instagram, like all the ways, if there's somebody that you respect or you see doing something pretty strong in your field or just in general, like reach out to them. Like there's no harm in doing that. And I think, like I
So
mentioned, like
generous.
when I was looking at visioning, I reached out to an owner of a business 45 minutes. I didn't have to do it, but it changed their trajectory, right? Um, that's my greatest advice. Like, don't do this in a bubble. Value your network. Reach out when you need help, but leverage the resources you have because you can gain so much information and mentorship coaching through just hitting send on something where, like I said, don't let the start stop you, right? Like,
Don't
don't
let
let
the
it stop you,
start
right?
stop it. That's
Yeah.
a big one. I love it. We could talk forever, but let's bring it home here, Randy. You've had a pretty incredible career. When if anybody looks at it on paper, to see someone going from an intern to having almost every role in an organization, hands on the truck, to now leading there, that is success. But Randy Shaka, at this stage of your life, how do you define success?
Yeah. Am I able to continue to pay it forward for others, right? Like moving people forward, like it's not just our business why, that's my personal why too, right? Like I had so many people help me in my journey. Now it's like I wake up every day, like junk removal, right? Like our storage, like all the things we're building today for me is hopefully setting up an opportunity for somebody else to come into this brand or leverage up in this brand to take on a new responsibility, take on a new opportunity and move themselves personally and professionally forward. And so that to me is what success for me looks like 24 years in today at Two Men is I'm giving back to those that are hungry, that want it, just like it was given to me when I was coming here for the first time.
I love it. I absolutely love it. Randy, this has been an incredible conversation. I want everybody to check out Two Men and a Truck. We will link it up in the show notes. Where else could folks connect? Where could they learn more?
You know what? LinkedIn's probably my best. I mean, just to
There you
connect and
go.
learn about me and some messaging. And you can find me there. Reach out to me. I always connect separately through that platform as best as we can.
Awesome. Good stuff. Well, everyone, I hope you enjoyed this episode. If it meant something to you, sharing means caring. Leave a review, a rating. It goes a long way. You know where to find out more. Visit thepodcast.com. Follow us on social media channels. Remember, be good to yourself, be better to others, and catch us next week for another great episode of the podcast. Take care, everybody.
Wisdom is forever, but for us, it's time to go. Thank you for joining us. Luckily, we'll be back with our next episode soon, jam-packed with more incredible humans. Thank you for listening, subscribing, and sharing. To join the conversation, search the podcast on LinkedIn. And to catch up on past episodes and more info, please visit www.thepodcast.com.